Welcome back to the channel. My name is Thomas Fletcher and I'm the host of the LCSW network. If you're new to this channel, please do me a favor by smashing that like button, by subscribing to the channel, and by sharing this video with your LCSW friends and colleagues. Okay, so the purpose of this channel is to create a community of hope and support where LCSWs can come for relevant news, information, and inspiration. Okay, let's get to today's topic. So a good friend and LCSW colleague of mine, Dr. Nick Allington, asked me to make a video on motivational interviewing and the recovery model for his class at Cal State Los Angeles. So, motivational interviewing was originally developed in the addictions fields in the 1980s as an alternative to the coercive and confrontational approaches that were used in the substance abuse field at that time. MI has since moved into many helping fields, including social work. William Miller reported that the formulation of MI was facilitated through individuals in Norway asking him why he interacted with clients in some ways that produced positive results rather than others. This forced Miller to make explicit the approach he had learned from his clients. Therefore, MI was developed through practice wisdom first, meaning what appeared to be working to help facilitate change, and then moved towards attaching theory about why it worked later, as is consistent with a practice-based evidence research methodology. So Miller and Rolnick back in 2002 define motivational interviewing as a client-centered directive method for enhancing intrinsic motivation to change by exploring and resolving ambivalence. This approach accepts that ambivalence toward behavioral change is normal. Argumentation is avoided because trying to persuade a person to make a behavioral change usually results in the person verbally defending the status quo. Intrinsic motivation is achieved when the person sees a conflict between their current behavior and other goals or values that they hold. The role of the counselor, therefore, is to explore these goals and values and to elicit statements or perspectives that support behavioral change. There are a variety of skills outlined in the use of MI, and an explanation of all these skills is really beyond the scope of this talk today. However, one interesting and critical facet of MI is that the intervention outlines not just what skills to use, but how to use the skills, how the skills are to be implemented. There is a spirit associated with MI that grounds how a counselor approaches people. Miller and Rolnick, again back in 2002, are clear that the spirit of MI is integral to its successful practice, as they have encountered practitioners and trainers mimicking component techniques without understanding their overall context. So let's look at the spirit of MI. The spirit of MI is comprised of three components: collaboration, evocation, and autonomy. These components are described as follows. So let's look at collaboration. Counseling involves a partnership that honors the client's expertise and perspectives. The counselor provides an atmosphere that is conducive rather than coercive to change. Miller and Rolnick contrast collaboration to its opposite approach, which is confrontation. Confrontation in which the overriding client's perspective and correcting his or her view of reality are central components. An individual may decide to personally confront behavior change issues during the MI process. However, it is not the role of the worker to be confrontational. The next component of the MI spirit is evocation. The resources and motivation for change are presumed to reside within the client. Intrinsic motivation for change is enhanced by drawing on the client's own perceptions, goals, and values. Evocation is in turn compared with education, in which there is an assumption of a deficit in the client's knowledge, insight, and/or skills that must be corrected by the counselor. Education, such as normative feedback, may be a tool used within MI, but it is not the goal. And the third component of the spirit of MI is autonomy. The counselor affirms the client's right and capacity for self-direction and facilitates informed choice. Autonomy is contrasted with authority, in which the client's role is to be told what he or she should do. These elements of the spirit of MI are important. They're very, very important in how we approach our work with our clients. So now let's take a look at the recovery model, and you're going to see that there's a lot of similarities, there's a lot of overlap. So let's take a look at the recovery model. So over the last 20 years, the mental health providers in the United States have seen the shift. And I think the shift started back in 2003 with the President's New Freedom Commission, which they did a very comprehensive review of the state of mental health practice in the United States, and they found that it was pretty much telling clients what to do, and there was really no, we just talked about intrinsic motivation in the MI. So in 2012, the SAMHSA, otherwise known as Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, revised and revamped what we now refer to as the recovery model. So let's look at it. So if we start with SAMHSA's working definition of recovery, the working definition of recovery that SAMHSA put out in 2012 is: recovery is a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. And through the Recovery Support Strategic Initiative, SAMHSA has delineated 4 major dimensions that support a life in recovery. The first dimension is health. And what we mean by this is overcoming or managing one's diseases or symptoms. For example, abstaining from the use of alcohol, illicit drugs, and non-prescribed medications if one has an addiction problem. And for everyone in recovery, making informed, healthy choices that support physical and emotional well-being. The second dimension that SAMHSA recognizes is home. And by that we mean a stable and safe place to live. The third dimension that supports a life in recovery is purpose. And what we mean by this is meaningful daily activities such as jobs, school, volunteerism, family caretaking, creative endeavors, and the independence, income, and resources to participate in society. And the fourth dimension that supports a life in recovery is community, relationships and social networks that provide support, friendship, love, and hope. So let's look at, and after SAMHSA talks about this working definition and these 4 dimensions that support a life in recovery, they go on to spell out 10 guiding principles of recovery. So let's take a look at them. The first guiding principle of recovery is hope. Recovery emerges from hope. And by this we mean the belief that recovery is real provides the essential and motivating message of a better future. That people can and do overcome the internal and external challenges, barriers, obstacles that confront them. Hope is internalized and can be fostered by peers, families, providers, allies, and others. Hope is the catalyst of the recovery process. The next guiding principle that we want to look at is person-driven. Recovery is person-driven. What we mean by this is self-determination and self-direction are the foundations for recovery as individuals define their own life goals and design their unique paths towards those goals. Individuals optimize their autonomy and independence to the greatest extent possible by leading, controlling, and exercising choice over the services and supports that assist their recovery and resilience. In doing so, they are empowered and provided their resources to make informed decisions, initiate recovery, build on their strengths, and gain or regain control over their lives. The next guiding principle of recovery is recovery occurs via many pathways. Individuals are unique with distinct needs, strengths, preferences, goals, culture, and backgrounds, including trauma experience, that affect and determine the pathway to recovery. Recovery is built on the multiple capacities